Hey, everybody! It's James, just hanging out here. We got three guys with us tonight: Matt, Tyler, and Hayden. We're going to talk about Wilson Lake. Quite the throwdown at Wilson Lake this last weekend, and I'm sure you guys have seen the results. But um, if you guys missed the tournament, if you weren't there, man, you've got to check this lake out. It's absolutely fantastic. So we're going to talk about that here in a second. Marty is supposed to jump on with us, but I don't know. He's retired and he's on his own schedule now. So who knows what's happening with Marty? So a couple things we want to talk about real quick before we get into chatting with these guys. Of course, this is our big week, fishing for families, coming up here in 3 days. It's been a long time coming. We put a lot of work into it. We are super excited for the event. If you haven't registered, please get registered. By the way, as a reminder, that is open to boats, bank, kayak anglers, and includes all Omaha Metro public waters, including Carter, Prairie View, and we threw Two Rivers in there also because it's a great lake to bank fish from. So that's coming up. Big thanks to our sponsors on that. Of course, Shields has been fantastic, not only for the club, but they've been signed on as our title sponsor for this event. Cannot thank them enough. Boda Box Wine, they came in as our media sponsor, gave us an opportunity to put commercials out on the air for our Fishing for Families event. Ferguson Enterprises stepped up, another big sponsor. We thank them. Mr. Picnic, of course. Shuck Seafood and Oyster Bar. We thank them. Ironhide Construction. That's Sam Burke's company. So super happy to have them. Of course, we also want to thank Josh and Ben over at ProPlum and thank them for their sponsorship of this event. Select Sale and Sports stepped up as a sponsor. We appreciate them. Jacob Francis, Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate. And of course, we cannot forget our friends at Pint 9 and Cross Strain. All those guys have been awesome in this. We're hosting the awards there. It's going to be an awesome thing. So if you guys have any questions on that, give me a call, 402-305-6578. We got our captain's meeting Friday night at 7 o'clock. And volunteers, if you can just come down to Cross Train that night, pick up the materials that you need for the event, we'll make sure that you're all squared away. So with that, I'm going to just go ahead and bring these guys on. There's Tyler, there's Matt, and Hayden. Fellas, thanks for coming on tonight. Appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
Hey, I got a question for you. What did you guys see the beer cans?
Yes.
These right here.
Yep.
What do you think of that, man?
That's awesome.
It's pretty awesome. That's our buddies at Cross Train are releasing this beer on Saturday in support of the event. And, just thought it was something kind of neat. But anyway, we'll get off that. Let's talk about Wilson, man. Hayden, have you been there before, or was this your first time?
So I went last year, coming back up from Texas after fishing Possum Kingdom for the Bassmaster Championship down there. I got a lot of bites there last year. Found one big fish, like a 19 and a quarter, I think, but only had two fish for the day.
Yeah.
But this year was a lot different. Still kind of struggled with bites, like keeping them hooked on, but definitely a big fish fishery. A lot of those we're seeing this weekend, which is awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
I definitely want to go back next year, though.
Yeah, for sure. Did you find it fished a lot different this year than last year?
Yeah. So last year I fished by the bridge and just stayed right on. This year they're up more a lot shallow for me, at least. I'm not sure about everybody else. I think everybody else is finding them pretty much shallow.
Yeah.
But I was fishing like 10, 8-foot last year, and they were sticking right to that bottom and almost a little bit suspended off those ledges.
Gotcha. So you've been there once before. I've never been there. Matt apparently lives right down the street or something. I don't know. He said he goes there every Wednesday, Thursday night after work or something. So, Matt, how often do you get over to Wilson, man?
That was actually my third time there this year. So, like I said before, enjoy going out there whenever somebody has an event, try to make it just a fun place to go. Great scenery, great fishing. There's only been once or twice where the wind has messed with us. Kicks up pretty strong on that lake, and it'll blow you around. So you gotta kind of watch where you're going if the forecast calls for any wind going.
Yeah, not a lot of places to hide.
No.
So,
Definitely.
and Tyler, you came in this weekend like you own the damn place.
Yeah, Friday morning was the first time I seen the water.
And so you pre-fished on Friday?
Yep, I was out there for a few hours on Friday pre-fishing.
Yeah, and whatever you figured out on Friday, did you stick with that going into Saturday morning?
Not right off the bat. Where I fished during the tournament, I caught an 18 3/4 and a 19 3/4 down in that vicinity, and then I left. I got those two fish and jetted out of there and ended up catching a 20-inch smallie in a different spot, and I actually went to that spot first thing Saturday morning.
Wow.
And I got three fish there, but they were just dinks, like an 8, a 10, and a 15. And I left it in about an hour and went down to the other spot, and that's where I hung out for the next 2 days.
Yeah, so when we were talking at awards, of course, let's just throw it out there that there were two events this weekend. So there was the one day with Central States, which was Saturday, and there was the 2-day All-American. So, and you guys, it was kind of funny to watch you guys finish first, second, third, same order for both tournaments.
Yeah.
But looking at the way that Sunday changed from Saturday was, I don't know how it was for you guys, but I had to totally change my game.
I did not. I went to the same place, went with the same pattern, same everything, and the fish were still there.
Yeah, Matt, how about you?
Yeah, on Sunday I didn't have my topwater action like I did on Saturday. On Saturday I had a limit by 7:30, and then on Sunday I didn't catch my first fish till 8 o'clock. So I had to switch gears and try to figure out what they had done differently overnight. So I don't know if it was the boat traffic or I think there was a little front that moved through. So for me it was definitely different, but I was able to struggle but yet put together something.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that. What kind of adjustments that you made? I mean, I know sometimes, especially when you're on a lake like Wilson size, it's kind of hard to figure out. Okay, I'm here. I'm fishing shallow, or I'm fishing bluffs, or whatever it is. I'm going to have a mile pedal to go change location and find different structure. How did you adjust from Saturday to Sunday to start finding fish again?
So like I said before, Saturday was pretty fast-paced, top-water, fast-moving baits. Sunday I started out with top-water, wasn't finding anything that wanted to shake it. So I started slowing down, throwing a tube, throwing a jig, and finally caught a couple fish and just realized that my presentation needed to be a lot slower. And I actually had to almost soak the bait for a little bit. So it was definitely different. Fished some weeds on Sunday that I didn't fish on Saturday, and just took my time and picked them apart a lot more thorough. So almost had to be right on top of them, it seemed like.
Yeah, I kind of noticed that myself, that slower was definitely better on Sunday. So Hayden, talk to us about Saturday to Sunday and what changed for you, if anything.
So Saturday was actually a pretty tough day for me. I picked up fish periodically, and my two big ones, that 21-inch smallmouth that I caught came at 11, and then that 20 3/4 came at 125 or 130. And I went that entire time without getting a bite. And the morning was a little bit faster, but like I said before, but then turning around going into Sunday, I kind of had a little bit more of a pattern. I was fishing off this point that's right off the boat ramp, like a fishing point right there. And it was definitely, you had to let that bait sit there, because the only way I'd really get bit is I was throwing a Ned head with a missile Ned bomb on it, and I was just letting it drop down slowly, and then you just see your line kind of get hit, and then you'd set the hook and you'd have one on. And that really only happened for a couple hours in the morning, then shut off. And then I finally got my last fish at 156 on Sunday.
Holy cow.
And I lost an 18 3/4 off the board. Like, that was my first fish in the morning. I lost it off the board. I usually have my net right there to kind of block it. But the entire day it was eating at me. I was like, oh my gosh, that fish could have been a $2,000 fish that I lost first thing in the morning. It was stressful.
It's kind of interesting that you talk about that late afternoon bite. So, of course, I wasn't in contention going into Sunday, but so slept in and got on the water late. We went and drop shot it over in the marina for a while. I picked up a 16 largie, and then we just kind of went searching. We knew some guys were throwing topwater along the bluffs the day before, and tried that. Picked up a striper. Then we're like, okay, now what? And couldn't figure it out. Drop shotted the bluffs for a while. Ran into Rick. I know that's kind of what he was doing on Saturday, and that bite just wasn't there on Sunday. So we went back to the shallow stuff that I'd fished before, and I caught, after that 16-inch, I didn't catch another fish till 1 o'clock, and I didn't even measure the 16-inch because I was like, 16 inches ain't gonna do me anything. But last hour, I caught 3 and lost 3, and I lost 2 smallies that probably were 20 inches, and that was in the last 15 minutes of the tournament. So pretty crazy. So
yeah.
So Tyler, you were on topwater.
Topwater, 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. both days. I
Really?
caught all my fish on topwater.
Are you working a popper? Are you working a buzzbait, or what are you doing?
Both. Oh, I did catch one on a spinnerbait on Saturday. So I left that spot early on Saturday morning and went down to where I started catching them and got some small ones, got my limit. And then from like 8:30 to 11:30 is when I got my big fish. And I had 94 inches at 11:30 on Saturday. And I just kind of like started backing off. I was like, I didn't want to blow out the spot for Sunday. So I started throwing just different baits, just kind of jacking around and fishing different stuff. And I barely fished for the last 2.5 hours. Ended up randomly getting a 18-inch upgrade off a spinnerbait on Saturday. But then Sunday, I kind of went back with the same approach and was popper and buzzbait all day.
Man, that's crazy. So I want to take a look here at the leaderboard on day one. Of course, Tyler, you crushed it, man. You had a 3.25 inch lead over
Yeah.
Matt, and Hayden was just 3/4 of an inch behind Matt. But tell me about your 21.25, man, because that was a nice fish, and I got to tell you, that one bummed me out a little bit.
Yeah, every fish I caught, I posted right away. I just went a kind of a different approach, and I just started, once I got my limit, I posted it, even though I had 2 really dinks in there. But then after that, it was when I caught the fish, I started posting it. And I had a limit of like 70 inches, maybe 72 inches. And then I got that 21.25, and I just was like, holy cow, like it hit a popper and just destroyed it. Got down in the stems and stuff I was fishing in, and they came up and measured it, took pictures, let it go, and just kind of sat there for a second, just kind of decompressing, because I knew that was the kicker I needed to really jumpstart to the top of the leaderboard. And then, just like I said, just posting everything as I got them.
Yeah. Hayden, let's talk about your big fish, man. 21-inch smallie. Personal best, I'm taking it, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. That's going to be a hard one to beat, but that's a story. So I come to this big rounded rock point, and Alex Nisley is coming. We come around at the same time. It's kind of like you just meet right there, and I throw one more cast in right before I'm about to head around, right around him, and I just pop that jig a little bit, and then I feel a dink, set the hook, and it jumped, and I was like, oh my gosh, that is an absolute giant smallmouth. And I was expecting it to kind of be all chaos, like horrible. I mean, it didn't expect like a Wilson Lake 21-inch largemouth or smallmouth you'd think would fight. It was kind of an easy fight. It took me on a couple of runs, but didn't do anything too serious. I did almost mess up the net job. I was getting my net ready, and it slipped down into the water a little bit too far, and that fish swam into the frame of the net, and the hook got caught in the net, and the fish was hanging outside the net. and I'm sitting there trying to scoop it back up under there, and it's just moving the fish side to side, and I was just like, I got to grab this fish, and I grabbed it and brought it in, and shout out to Alex. I caught that 21 right in front of him, and not a lot of guys are going to be happy and about when they see that happen right in front of them, but he was a good team player, and he was like, I'm happy you caught that, and he caught like a 19 3/4 largemouth right after that, so I'm happy. He was happy for me and played it cool. I mean,
awesome.
not a lot of guys can do that, so.
Tyler, does that sound familiar at all?
Yeah, I did that to you last year at 12 Mile. It's like, you can have that point, James, and I turn around and I hear you screaming. And I'm like, what just happened back there?
Yeah, 20 3/4, man. That was too funny. Matt,
Yeah.
what was your big fish for the tournament?
I believe it was 20-incher on the first day.
Yeah.
And I was actually flipping some weeds, and of course, you'd see carp cruising up shallow, and I caught her out of the glimpse of my eye. She was just sitting by one lonely stick, and I was like, oh my God, that's a bass. But she was so shallow, I didn't want to throw it right on top of her because I was afraid I was going to spook her. So I actually threw it on the bank and then drug it into the water like a crawfish scooting out. And as soon as it went by her, she turned it and just smoked it. And I didn't even have to wait to feel if she had it in her mouth because I seen her inhale it, and I immediately set the hook. So definitely get the heart pumping when you see a fish of that caliber. Inhale your bait right there in front of your kayak, and then then the real work begins because you got to get her to the boat, get her or to the kayak, and get her in the net. So that definitely feel good moment anyhow.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. You gotta love that when you can see that fish take what you're giving them, right? I mean,
Yep.
It doesn't happen often.
No.
For sure. I see it sometimes with if I'm doing a finesse, maybe toss it. You see some movement in the water, you throw a wacky or something in there, and you can see them chase after it and smoke it. But that's super cool. Hey, is Wilson Lake? I know the water there was pretty clear. Is it normally pretty clear?
Yeah. Like I've read before, it's got one of like the best drainages coming into it because of all the grass, and then because of the sand out there, that filters a lot of the dirt and debris out of the water, I guess, or the runoff until it gets into the lake. Sometimes the west end of the lake will get murky, but you can still probably see anywhere from 10 to 12 inches, so it doesn't get extremely, mud colored dirty like chocolate milk.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you say that because back to your carp story, the area I was in, there was a lot of carp. Mm-hmm. And then one of the fish I caught, I had some kind of brush and sticks that came off the bank, and I threw a buzzbait close to the bank and brought it out. And I'm like, oh crap, I spooked a carp because I could see the wake off of his back. Well, all of a sudden that fish circled around and came after my buzzbait, and it was like a 19.5-inch bass. So then it started me thinking, like, these all aren't carp. These are bass back here doing this. And it was wild to see that. And I had a couple fish that I actually could see coming after my topwater. And just, you're like the anticipation. You're just waiting for it to happen. And it did. And it was pretty wild to see that. And then back where I was at, the water was not clean at all. I was fishing really dirty water.
Really? And
so
were you finding smallmouth in the dirty water?
All largemouth.
All largemouth.
Everything was a largemouth back there.
Yeah. Hayden, how about you? Were you on largemouth or smallmouth or a little bit of both?
First day, a little bit of both. Second day for the All-American was just largemouth.
Really?
I caught that like 16.25 smallmouth on a different rock point from what I was catching everything else. And then that 21 came, and that 20 3/4. That one came like at 120, like I said. When I was trying to downsize and just catch another like 16 or a 12-inch, I didn't care. And I finally got bit and it jumped. I was like, oh my gosh, it's another giant.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. We got a few people watching. If you guys are on watching, make sure you say hello. We got James Strawbridge from Colorado Kayak Bassmasters. If you guys don't know him, he's a good dude for sure. So he's bummed he missed that event. I know he wanted to be out there, but hopefully he can come out and make it next year. So one of the things that I was talking to Josh Booth about at the end of the tournament is the All-American may not go back there next year. And it's just because it's hard to get people out there. And I don't know what you guys think. I kind of have my own feelings about it. I mean, it's an awesome fishery. It's probably one of the favorite lakes I've ever been to, but there's not a lot of services out there. There's not restaurants. There's not a lot of hotels.
Yep.
It's you can go and camp, and other than that, what else is there? So
Correct.
do you,
Yeah.
Matt, the tournaments that you fished there before, have you seen low numbers like what we saw this weekend?
I think it's hit and miss. It really depends on the time of year. I will say every time we've been out there, the numbers have been high for what it takes to win. When we did our Kansas Kayak Anglers tournament out there, the top, I believe, 4 guys had over 90 inches. I think the winner was actually 94 for that event. So, I mean, the lake fish is good, but just the drive getting out there. I was kind of looking at the All-American Facebook page, and some of the guys, were debating making that 6, 7, 8 hour drive to fish Wilson. So, I think it's a fun lake to fish. I think if everybody, I think for those who made the trip out, they enjoyed the lake and enjoyed the scenery and enjoyed the fishing. So,
yeah, for sure. I would say that fishing a place like Wilson, and just how remote it is as far as hotels and restaurants, you have to just plan that trip a little bit better. I mean, you got to get on top of, if you want an Airbnb, you better do it a few months out ahead, to get that, or make sure you have a good camping spot or a camper or whatever, because there's really not a lot. We went into to town to the Flyboy Brewery to eat one night, and that place was packed. It was like everybody from 4 towns around had come out to that place. It's crazy, man. But anyway, if you guys wanted a cash cow, open a restaurant out in that area, you'd probably make a fortune. So, so we'll see. I definitely want to go back, but I'm kind of like Josh. Like, we got to have the numbers to support it, because if we back out the Kansas and Missouri guys that fished the CSKS event, what are we looking at? 12, 14, 15 guys, something like that. And, it is kind of hard to justify that. I mean, nobody wants to go fish for a $200 first place prize, right?
Yeah.
So, hey, Tyler, I want to ask you, man, you're on fire, right? I mean, you're just flat out kicking butt this year. We knew you were a good angler last year, but what have you changed, man? What's going on? Is it?
Nothing's really changed. I think I'm just, right after COVID, I bought the kayak and just kind of getting comfortable with fishing out of it and just finding the spots that no one else is finding and kind of going to those oddball
Taking
spots.
all my spots.
Yeah. Rick says I'm taking all the spots.
Yeah, Rick's probably a 6-pack deep, so we're not listening to him.
No, he showed up. He showed up late. He had to work today.
He had 3 beers in him already, I'm sure.
But
so
I don't know what it is. It's just everything I kind of been doing has been working, and I think I've been kind of picking apart spots a little bit more than actually just kind of giving up on it so quick. And it seems to be helping.
Yeah.
Because at Wilson, I fished the same stretch of shoreline, I don't know how many times, and was still catching fish. They just kept reloading. And I'm finding those spots and sticking with it, and it's paying off.
Yeah. So let's tell us a little bit about the tournaments that you fished this year and how you kind of finished. I know you went down to Texas. I think you had help me out there. Was it 16th place?
13th. Went to Lake Fork for Bassmasters. Finished 13th out of 150. 12th?
Yeah.
12th or 13th out of 150.
Yeah.
So I had a good tournament there, which was crazy because that was really tough fishing. Super cold weather, and just did really well there. After that, we went to Oklahoma for the Bassmaster. Did not do well there at Grand Lake. That was an awful showing there. Wanahoo, another tough day. Super windy out there that day. Did not do well. One fish at Wanahoo. Then Elwood, same thing. Showed up a day early to pre-fish, and it was crazy windy. Didn't even go out on the water. Just looked at the lake from the shore. So the first time I was out on the water was tournament day, and 3 hours in, I caught my first fish, and then found some fish back in some coves, and that's all she wrote, and ended up winning that thing. And Same thing with Black Hawk. Went to Black Hawk, didn't catch a fish for 2 hours into the tournament, and then kind of found a pattern where they were sitting on lifts, and from like 9 to 11 caught my limit, good limit on fishing jet ski lifts.
Right.
What else did we do? Lacrosse. Went to lacrosse for All American. Had 2 really good practice days. Had a good day 1 out of 3 days, and then day 2 it just couldn't find the big fish bite.
Yeah.
And just got a small limit on day 2 and took me out of contention.
Yep. And then this happened.
And then this happened. Yeah, I never expected. I went into this just hoping for a top 10. I was like,
Right.
I'm just looking for a top 10 for AOI points and just to kind of hold that spot to stay above CP. And the spot I found, they were just there, and they just kept reloading, and they were all big. I mean, I was on big fish for 2 days in that spot, every
Yeah.
single one of them. And I had the bites on Sunday to get 96 again. I just lost 2 fish that just smashed my buzzbait, had them hooked, and they just popped off. I don't know what the hell happened. They just came off.
Yeah.
And
Matt,
they were big fish.
Yeah, you did all right though, man. You took home a nice check, right? Like,
I know.
You had a pretty good payday for losing a couple of fish. So,
I mean,
Matt,
my Sunday was up and down. I mean, I went a lot of long stretches without fish.
Yeah.
I think I caught 2 fish within the first 10 minutes. I had a 14 and a 19 and a half, 10 minutes into lines in. And then I went 2.5 hours without a bite. And I got nervous. Then I got my 3rd, then I got my 4th, and then I missed 3 big fish in a row. And then I got my limit at like 11:30 on Sunday.
Wow.
So it was not an easy going day by any means.
Yeah.
But it worked out. Like I said, it worked out in the end.
Yeah, for sure it did, to the tune of a couple grand or something.
Yeah.
Three grand, whatever, man. It's a pretty good weekend. I'm sure Stacy's like, dude, you need to go fishing more, right?
Yeah, right.
Too funny. Matt, this was your first time fishing Central States. I think you said, hey, I didn't even know you guys existed. Which is all right, man. We get that. It's cool. Thank you for coming out, man. Tell us a little bit about some of the events that you fished this year and how you finished, and are you in a hunt for AOI with Kansas Kayak Anglers, or?
So I only started this kayak stuff like 3 years ago, so I would still consider myself a rookie. But I just enjoy going out fishing with all the guys and fishing the different events, and I seen the All American was coming down here. I seen you guys were fishing down here. I was like, 2 tournaments in 1 weekend. Am I going to be able to survive? And everything just worked out where I was able to come out and compete, have a good time, meet a bunch of new folks. Already been looking at your website, seeing what you guys fish, and maybe hit a few of those next year. So far with the Kansas series, they did an AOY here the other day, and I'm actually 3 points behind the leader.
Oh, nice, man.
In that standing. So doing a lot better than I expected. We'll see. We got 2 events left this year. We'll see what happens and see if I can seal the deal or fall behind. I don't know.
Sure.
And I wouldn't be mad about another second place. So that seems
right.
to be where I'm at lately.
So you said you've been in a kayak for 3 years. Did you come from boat fishing, or just kind of like everybody else, just kind of grew up around fishing and were like, hey, I want to get on the water, I'm going to go buy a kayak?
Definitely. Grew up fishing, had a lake in my hometown, fished all the time after school on the weekends. Did boat tournaments growing up, BFL, the Kansas Bass Federation, the whole 9 yards. And then seen the kayak series and thought, well, that's something new I've never done before. So started out with a Jackson Kilroy paddle. And I did that for 1 year, and I was like, man, I'm seeing these guys with the pedal drives. That looks so much easier. And so then that's when I got my Kusa, and that completely changed my game because now I can cover more water. I can fish more. Just getting around to different places, it's just so much quicker, and it's not as much wear and tear on the arms. So,
yeah, I get that. I paddled until this year. Now I pedal, and it's a huge difference.
Yeah, and the fishing time, from paddling to pedaling. I mean, when you're paddling, you might only get I don't know, 40-45% fishing time because you're always adjusting with the paddle, and then with the pedal drive, I think I'd say up there around 80%. Fishability.
Yeah.
So, and then getting from one spot to the other faster, that definitely helps out.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm gonna come back in a second to something we just talked about covering water. But first, I want to jump over to Hayden and Hayden. I know you fished a couple events with us, but let's hear about your season, man. What you've done and what's on your schedule for rest of the year.
So I forget what my first tournament of the year was, but I kind of started off. I think I went down to Grand for the Bassmaster event there. Came one spot out of the money down there, which is tough because that's a lake I grew up fishing. My grandparents have a lake house down there, so I fished that one for a long time. Then I think a little bit after that, I fished Wanahoo, and I caught a nice fish. Wasn't expecting to catch it right there because it was so windy that day. I was just messing around trying to get my kayak in the right position and just happened to hit that one. And then I've been doing most of the sticks events. Sitting okay for AOI points there. I think I'm teetering like right on getting in the top 10. I think after this last tournament, I got top 10 there, so it should push me up. And then my next tournament I got coming up is I'm going to Lewis and Clark for the All-American and the sticks one up there. And then I'm going to be doing a Hobie BOS at Lake Darnadell down in Arkansas. And I think sticks championship. And then I'm going to try to do that one down at Lake of the Ozarks for that big bass down there.
Oh, cool, man. Cool. So, all right. So I wanted to ask, so Matt was talking about covering water. So, and I just want to throw this out there because I know some people, when they fish these tournaments, they have a tendency to stay in an area too long or maybe move on too quick. How do you guys find that balance? When do you know when it's time to move on, or when are you staying in a place and picking it apart? Tyler?
Last year, I probably moved a ton. So it's completely opposite from last year to this year. Last year, I probably moved a lot, covered a lot of water. And this year, it's been completely different. I found fish in areas and I stayed there. And everybody always thinks, oh, somebody just went through that area or I just fished that stretch. There's no fish there anymore. This year, I kind of taken a different approach and went over spots. I'd fish it one way, I'd turn around and go back. And I'd still catch fish there. And it's been working a lot. Sometimes those fish see a bait the first time, they may not grab it. Then they see it a second or third time, then they grab it. And I've kind of been going across that approach this year, not giving up on a spot too quick. And it's just really been paying off.
Yeah. Matt, what do you think?
I agree with that. Definitely from fishing out of a boat to fishing in a kayak, I've learned to, slow down and work in your area more thorough just because, on the boat, you can blast across the lake beach to the other side in 2 minutes. But with a kayak, I don't want to say stuck to a general area, but you're more restricted on where you can go. So I've definitely learned to slow down, pick an area apart more thorough and fish it out better. And then once you do find something productive, like a rock pile or a brush pile or something like that, definitely fish it in because more than likely there's more than just one fish hanging onto it.
For sure. So, Hayden, if you roll up on a brush pile, you fish it, you don't catch anything, you don't get any bites. What are you doing? Are you moving on? Are you changing up baits? What are you doing?
So I would say a lot of it, obviously has to do with pre-fishing, where you're finding fish, and just a lot of the conditions. A lot of what I'm probably going to say is stuff that everybody knows, but like Grand Lake, the Bassmaster event down there would be a good example of this. Just so my spots got completely blown out the days before, and I was it was the night before the tournament, and I just pull up to this boat ramp, and I'm looking at this back area of this cove, and had the clearest water, the warmest water, and bait. So, with that combination, you're going to find fish. You just kind of know where fish should be, I feel like.
Right.
And, but like when I'm going to move on, I'm probably fishing a spot or like a brush pile with baits that I'm confident in, that I know how they should get bit and like the area in general they should get bit. And if they're not getting bites, but I'm seeing fish on the graph, maybe move on to a different spot, try out, and come back later. Maybe they're just not fired up yet. Just because you're not catching fish doesn't necessarily mean they're not there, because you can always see them on the graph and you can hit them different during different parts of the day. And that's why I found at this tournament, a lot of fish moved up closer to the main lake than farther back in the cove I was fishing as the day went on.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, man. I was I was on a brush pile late in the afternoon, started throwing a Ned on it, and it was too fast for him. It was sinking too fast. Switched that over to a wacky, and then I started getting hit. And so yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense to just kind of think about those things and maybe switch up baits before moving on. I would say I probably moved too fast, especially coming from paddles to pedals. Like I'll make 4 or 5 casts. I'm like, okay, there's nothing here, and I tend to move on to the next. But on the opposite end, if you watch Jennifer Solberg, watch her fish, she'll pick an area, and she's got the spot lock, and she'll sit on that spot lock for an hour and pick a place apart. And it's crazy to watch, and I'm like, I don't think I could do it. And I'm trying to figure out, like, okay, well, does it make sense to do that? She's catching some fish, or does it make sense to just move on and then try something else? So hard to say. So
sometimes it's about changing angles too. I mean, that's the thing about going down a bank one way and then turning around and coming back. I mean, those fish are seeing that bait at a different angle the second time, and a lot of times that's what triggers things to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember having a conversation with Tim Parker after Carter Lake last year, and I want to say he had a second place finish at Carter last year.
Yes.
And a lot of the guys were over there just cranking on that shore, cranking on that bait on that bank, and what he said he was doing is he was just trying to change that angle. So everybody was coming at one direction, so he went the other direction, and that worked for him. So
it happened to me at Blackhawk. I mean, I seen at least 4 other anglers fish the spot that I fished at Blackhawk, but they were out kind of deeper, fishing the deeper edge of it. Right. And I went shallow to the back end of it, changed the angle, and that's where I was catching all my fish.
Yeah. Fishing's crazy, man. You just never know. You never know. Like, you can look at something and just think, okay, yeah, the fish are going to be sitting on this ledge. And they're not. They're sitting in 2 foot of water, on a 90-degree day.
I hardly seen anybody where I was fishing. I mean, it was dirty water. It was shallow water. I've seen a few guys down there on Saturday, but they were kind of in and out, moving around. And then Sunday, I was down there all by myself.
Yeah.
I think Sunday there was only 2 guys at my boat ramp, myself and another guy that launched there.
Really?
Yep.
Did you stay at the same boat ramp that you launched on Saturday?
Yep.
Yeah. What's Rick laughing about back there?
He was just saying that some of those guys, like the group that we were with, some guys were kind of down in that area, but left me alone.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, Hayden. Rick was distracting me there. You stayed at the same ramp?
Yeah, I stayed at the ramp, and Matt was kind of fishing the same area I was too. We passed by each other a couple times, and even on Sunday for the All-American, we kind of met in the morning. He was like, "Yeah, it's kind of been tough," and then we kind of go by each other without exchanging a few words. And I was like, "Oh, he's playing his cards close to his chest." I kind of got worried there.
I got to tell you guys, man, I felt really bad for Sam Burke. I got pulled off the water for a couple hours on Saturday to go deal with the park ranger. The guy was a jerk, but I came back on the water and went over to the marina, and Sam was over there drop shotting, and he was pretty happy because he didn't have a very good day pre-fishing the day before, and he was pretty happy, and he was sitting there catching these fish, and with 30 seconds left, he drags a jig over a brush pile. He yells at me, "James, you're my witness." I turn around and look at him, and I'm like, dude, you got 30 seconds to get that thing up, take a picture. So he flipped it up on the boat, dropped his camera once, got his picture in, and that would have put him in the lead when the leaderboard went off. So he was pretty excited. As a director, we get back to the boat ramp, we're loading up, and I'm looking at it, and oh man, it was just tearing me up inside. I felt so bad for him, but that's fishing, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, anything else you guys want to talk about? Share. I know this week's been hot up here in Nebraska. Matt, I assume it's been hot down there.
Yep.
Not a whole lot of fishing. We canceled our league night the other night because it was a heat index of 110, and I'm too damn old to do that. But one of these days, this weather will cool down and the wind won't blow. So, but if you guys don't have anything else, we'll wrap this thing up. I appreciate you guys coming on. Tyler, we'll see you on Saturday. Hayden, if you're in Omaha, man, come on up and fish our fundraiser with us. Matt, thank you. We hope to see you again on the water. We appreciate you guys, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good night, guys.
Yeah.